talking about the trailers, the Kevin Sorbo God Is Not Dead trailer. So, Nathaniel, do you want to start us off with that?
Okay, sure. I was kind of a fan, not a big fan, but I was kind of a fan of Kevin Sorbo's sci-fi series, and I'm forgetting what the hell it was called.
Are you thinking
Andromeda.
Phoenix?
No, Andromeda.
Oh, that thing. Okay.
It was actually not bad, and I kind of enjoyed it, and I had the whole series, but literally out of protest, I just deleted the whole thing when I saw that. Kevin, no, I did. I was like, I'm never watching him again, ever. I don't care how good the series is. I was so pissed off that he did this piece of crap, movie that, and then not only that, went out of his way in subsequent interviews to basically insult atheists by saying, well, they are kind of like that. I know some that aren't, but a lot of them are, etc. And I was just so outraged. I was like, forget it. I'm never watching him again. So and the thing is, the reason why I liked that, I never watched Hercules ever. I think I saw maybe one episode when it was on, like 20 years ago, whatever it was. Because I was at some friend's house and we were drinking or something. But I never thought that he was a decent actor. But actually in Andromeda, he ended up being not so bad, which I thought was kind of like a bonus to the series. Where I was like, well, actually, that's actually not so bad. And it was an interesting storyline, which I thought was kind of cool. But just his involvement in this catastrophe was just enough for me to say I'm never watching it again. And I just deleted. I trashed the whole thing, and that was it. So there you go. That was my personal protest. I think if I haven't, there you go.
Well, you sure showed them. By
yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know who I was trying to. I don't know who I was trying to impress, myself or, but either way, it was satisfactory to me. That's all I really cared about at that point. I was like, that's I can't live with this crap on my hard drive. That was it. So there you go. And no, I haven't watched his stupid. Nor shall I. I'm pretty. I know the story by now and how it. So there you go. Geocentrist movie though would actually. I might mind watching that if somebody posted on just for comedic effect or something.
I absolutely have to see that movie. That whatever the geocentrist movie is. What a clever way to go about it too, because they kind of duped a lot of these voice talents. So
Kate Mulgrew yeah. I was a little pissed at that actually, but yeah.
But that it gets attention and people are like, oh, what do they say? What do they do? And now I want to go see it, even though you're prep. They weren't there to represent those ideas, but it'll be good for a laugh.
Well, I would see it. I would watch it if it's on like YouTube or something. I don't want to give them money, basically.
Yeah, same here. Actually, I've only ever downloaded one movie with BitTorrent software, and it was several years ago. What's it called? Bueller. Expelled.
Oh, Expelled. Yeah.
Once I heard what that movie was about, I thought, well, I have to see this thing, but there's no way I'm going to introduce a nickel into the system that makes movies like that. And maybe
I never watched it. I watched the debunking videos, but not the movie.
One of the topics that I did. I've seen it twice. One of the topics that was to be discussed on the now ill-fated episode 80 of Magic Sandwich Show was just how it seems like this year there are so many more of these Christian movies, and maybe that's not the case. I mean, even a few years ago, like Expelled was pretty popular. People are still referring to it. It just seems like I'm just going to try to run down a quick list here. There's I don't know if that geocentrist movie is really fairly something to be say Christian, although most of those guys, when you scratch the surface of it, they're...
Oh, I think it's entirely Christian. Come on.
Yeah. Well, their view is grounded in some sort of weird Christian theology that most Christians would not call Christian, but whatever. That's it. It's grounded in Scripture, let's say.
Yeah.
Whether other Christians would agree with that. But there's God is Not Dead with Kevin Sorbo, and then now A Matter of Faith, and that was the link that we posted for the for discussion there. And as I said in our little apology video here, we don't want to play the actual trailers. It's only a minute, but you're better off to send your audience away, give them a link, and say, well, go watch this for the next 1 minute 36 seconds, and then come back, because you don't want to include it in there because they see that as an excuse to. But it just, I mean, going back to the Kevin Sorbo character, I mean, it's incredible how, like, they clearly, how do I say it? Okay, like when they made the movie MASH back in the early 70s, I believe it was. So this is a movie for the younger folks about a mobile, for the younger folks. Well, you're also more worldly. You were, there was something pretty serious going on in Korea in the 50s. And the movie MASH, which later then spawned very loosely related series MASH, was based on a mobile army surgical hospital in Korea, the American military. And of course, the movie makers were trying to tell a story, talk about these circumstances, talk about the people. But to actually produce the movie, they hire consultants, people who are actually staff and medical staff at these hospitals that were in Korea, to make sure that, like, when did the sets look right? Did people say the types of things that they would actually be saying? And they try to lend some authenticity to it by bringing and there was. Every season of MASH, when it was a TV series, there was always a consultant on staff. And for some reason, people that make movies like God is Not Dead cannot seem to find an atheist consultant, or even a university consultant, somebody who would tell them, this is what a university is really like.
Well, I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, they're not interested in getting stuff to be accurate. I mean, they're fundamentalists.
Yeah. They're not at all married to truth. They have a very strange...
Right.
Very strained relationship with truth. But even like in the trailer for A Matter of Faith, there's one part where the father goes in and he's demanding an explanation why there's no creationism as an alternative in the textbooks, and the guy's like, the dean or whoever he's talking to there is like, well, I mean, come on, I mean, at universities they that's just what we do. We just teach that evolution is the explanation for the origin of life.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like, what university dean is going to make that gaffe? Yeah. Right. That even YouTube Christians are starting to learn that evolution is not the explanation for the origin of life.
Yeah. I mean, it's just well, like I said, I don't think. I mean, I think it's fairly clear that they don't actually. I mean, they're not interested in truth. They're not interested in accuracy, and they're certainly interested in truth. So. Yeah, why would they? Why would they hire an atheist? I mean, the only atheists that they appear to have spoken to are people that they duped into speaking to them. Mm-hmm. They couldn't even be upfront about. I mean, it's happened already in more than just that geocentrist movie. It happened in whatever. They misrepresented themselves to get the footage that they wanted from Richard Dawkins and the others. So this is not the first movie that they've done that in, this geocentric movie. So yeah, they're completely without scruple. That's it. About their beliefs anyway. I mean, I don't know anybody who really thinks that they are. So that's all I really have to say on the subject of those movies right now. But feel free to jump in.
I have to jump in with something completely unrelated because it's going to drive me crazy, and then I see a lot of other people have joined, so I'm going to take a short break here. In discussing Kevin Sorbo, at the very beginning, once we went live, I had said, so he was in Andromeda, which I did not watch. That show sucked. I don't care what people think. Leave nasty comments if you want. You guys have believe how many nasty comments I got. I made a wisecrack about Doctor Who on the Magic Sandwich Show.
I love Doctor Who, and that would be blasphemy.
I know. It was bad.
I'm just kidding.
People lost their minds. But I did not like Andromeda. I don't care if you do. People, go ahead and send me nasty messages on G+. I don't care. Write nasty messages on my Facebook page.
I think I'm pretty alone in liking Andromeda.
Do it a second time. But anyway, I said that Kevin Sorbo was also the Phoenix in the early 80s. It's bothered me so much. I'm sorry that was Judson Scott was the Phoenix, Bennu of the Golden Light.
I don't remember that. It sounds familiar, but I don't remember that.
I think it was only on for one season, and not or a half a season or something. And
By the way, I have to preface or amend what I said about I didn't think that a drama was a great show. I just thought that it was passably decent and worth keeping. But yeah, I mean, I just that was it for me when I saw his involvement.
Hey, I like bad science fiction. I hung it out there with Babylon 5 for longer than most of you guys. I
actually Babylon 5 for the first came out, and then I forget. I think I interfered with this is VCRs, as you remember. So I interfered with something at school, at college. I was at the I couldn't watch it anymore really, and I just kind of fell out of it. But the first episode, the first season was actually not compared to what else was on TV at the time. You know, people are spoiled today. You know, kids are rotten today. Spoiled, rotten. But yeah, I mean, yeah. What can I say? I'm an old guy.
Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones and things like this.
I started reading Game of Thrones in 1999, I think it was. Yeah, 1999 or 1998, I can't remember. My friend turned me on to it.
Nice.
So I've been a huge fan for a long time.
Don't talk about it then, if you've read the books.
Oh yeah, I know what happens. I know what happens. Unless they change stuff, you know. It could be that. I mean,
apparently they are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been discussed that they may have to do this quite a lot because they're making them faster than you can pump them out at this point.
Yeah, basically.
He is by far the slowest writer in the history of novels. It's taken him how many? It's taken him what, 2 decades to write how many books? Takes. I don't know. Yeah, it's a while.
He's very particular about describing meals and he's very like particular about things like that. I've been told. I haven't actually read the books myself, but friends of mine that have read them always say that. Yeah. You spend like a whole chapter describing the banquet or something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's detail oriented. I mean, it's kind of like reading Tolstoy or something. Each character is basically a book in of itself. So, yeah, I mean, I don't fault him for taking a long time to write this. It's just that it's getting down to the wire in terms of their production at this point, and nobody is quite sure what they're going to do. I think. Just suspend a season or something.
Yeah. So, are we talking? Did we bring up these movies for any particular reason, or?
Yeah, because I brought up Andromeda.
Yeah,
I shouldn't have, and I'm sorry, and I apologize. I'm really sorry. Don't swamp me with like hate mail for finding it passable. Fun sci-fi.
That's it. You're done.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know I gave up any moral authority that I have right now. Well, hey, look, I made it up. I made up the mistake, right? I tossed it out. So there you go. I redeemed myself. I think. I hope.
Since we don't want to have to do another one of these, I was thinking that perhaps we could. Go along with the topics that were supposed to be done today, since that's what people were expecting anyway. Anyway, the first one was why are so many movies supporting the beliefs of evangelical Christians, and that was why we brought up the Kevin Sorbo God is not dead type thing. Has anyone seen Noah? Has Noah come out yet?
Oh, Noah's come a while ago.
No, I haven't seen it. It was released in Australia about a month ago or something. I don't know.
Oh, more than that, I think. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's been a while. been a while since
It's usually worldwide. They usually do worldwide releases pretty close with movies now, because it's the only way to beat piracy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch it, and I have no intention of watching it. I know Christians were really pissed off that they changed things or whatever, but I was pissed off that they made it in the first place, frankly. I think it was I wrote a post about it, actually, I think, a long post. I said, something to the effect of, with everything that, in our society, in our American society, which these idiots, these people really ought to have known better. The people who were in the movie, who were acting in the movie, and the people who made the movie, and I just think that it was a huge mistake, frankly.
It's instant market, though,
I don't care. I mean, there's an instant market.
I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm not saying
Yeah.
morally it's a good idea necessarily, but I mean that's the motivation. I mean,
you
name a
selling
movie any
heroin.
biblical character, and it's like America. It's like selling heroin. Yeah,
Yeah.
perhaps. I mean, there's just so many people know those names there, and yeah, I don't know.
I just, the people who are in the movie, some may be Christian, but I doubt that most of them, or even any of them, are religious fundamentalists. Yet they are. I am absolutely certain of this. Living in Hollywood as they do, they are knowledgeable of these societal issues that we are having, and for them to have volunteered to, I don't care how much money. I mean, it's like, what's his name? The guy who plays Noah. What's his name? The star of the movie. Gladiator.
Yeah, I can't think.
Yeah, I mean,
Russell Crowe.
Yeah, Russell Crowe. He's
Crowe.
got literally what, like $100 million. So what's it matter to him, or more? I mean, what's it matter to him that they throw some more millions this way? He should have put his foot down and said, "Look, I have enough money. I'm not going to do it."
Perhaps you're giving them too much credit. Maybe they just haven't. They're not very philosophical people or something like that. Who knows? I mean,
Well, the movie Noah
Someone says-
isn't pro-evangelical, right? I mean, this is a movie
know.
Yeah,
that
it's not.
evangelicals
Yeah, I was about to
are
mention-
hopping mad about, right?
Yeah, I know. I understand that, but the very idea that they promote it's not. Look, it's not like it convinced people that, sure, this must be real because I've never heard of it put this way, and so it must be a real story. But it basically reinforces these stupid beliefs at a time when, frankly, we could do without that.
I don't know that it does that. I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen and read enough about it now. I've seen enough clips and stuff like that to realize that it makes the story seem rather preposterously mythological. First of all, he's having voices in his head, right? It's not presented as God appears, like he does to Moses in a burning bush. He's not having a supernatural experience of that sort. There are voices going on in his head, basically, and nobody else is hearing this. So he's having basically a private vision, a kind of private religious experience. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, he has these sort of weird dreams and visions of what's to come. And then so he has to interpret it all. It's not just God is just flat out saying stuff to him. He has to sort of interpret and figure out what's going on. So it's kind of like the movie Signs. He's sort of, viewer is being asked to sort of imagine how would you interpret this. And then, of course, there's the fact that there are these supernatural monsters, the Nephilim, these rock creatures that have to assist in the building of the ark, because obviously this is not a feat of human engineering that could have been accomplished back then, right?
Yeah.
Right. So actually, I think it kind of it deconstructs the myth somewhat. People who are going to have a kind of Sunday school idea that, well, a humble carpenter, if he just applied himself long enough with his family, could build such a thing. Ridiculous.
I understand that, but I still feel as if it was socially irresponsible to make this movie.
Yeah, well, I'd have to see the movie myself to make up my mind about that. But from what I've seen, it does not seem like it's the kind of movie
Well, I said, yeah, I mean, I said that they were upset about it. I mean, evangelicals. I know that they were upset about it.
Yeah.
They said they changed the story, blah blah blah. But again, I mean, we could have done without the controversy, especially at this time. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I'm not saying that.
Okay, but like, what is the harm in that though? Like, I mean, it just seems to me that someone has decided to take a Bible story and make a movie because it can make it's a kind of epic grand story that everyone's heard and is bringing it to life. And you know, it's kind of like Gladiator in a way. You know, it's taking something that is sort of in the popular consciousness, the idea of gladiatorial games and corrupt emperors and stuff like that, and you know, it takes a story that sort of resonates on a lot of levels. It's kind of archetypal. It takes a different archetypal story, the story of Noah and the flood, and it sort of, you know, brings it to life on. But this doesn't seem to me like this is being presented as history. Now, again, I haven't seen it, so I could be wrong, but my understanding of from what I have seen of it in clips and trailers and in reviews and reading about it, it's not being presented as a history. So I don't see how it's. I mean, it seems to me that it's doing the opposite of that. It's sort of demythologizing it by presenting it. That's not demythologizing it. It's dehistoricizing it by presenting it, by mythologizing it, by making it apparent that this is evidently mythology. That was sort of my feeling about it. So I didn't see that it was a bad thing initially, because I thought, oh no, don't tell me it's one of those movies, you know, presenting it as history. But my sense is it does not try to present it as sober history. And so if that's the case, if I'm right about that, then I don't think it's a bad thing. I think on balance it would be a good thing.
Perhaps I you know, I didn't see it, and maybe you're right. I just feel that there are seriously better things to do with movies right now.
Well, yes, there are better subjects.
They're really. I just, you know, in a sense, I felt betrayed by the liberal Hollywood that everybody, that all of them decry. You know,
it's coming out with, you know, Transformers and X-Men and all these sorts of things. So I mean, in that context, and especially in this age of, like, we all know that movies have, you know, CGI in them, and then to see, you know, how ridiculous some of the things in Noah might be, and think, oh yeah, as if that would ever happen, you know, kind of like you fondly do in action flicks from time to time, you know.
Yeah. I would agree
with all this though is that in the case of another epic fantasy, perhaps something like Thor, which might have had a basis in some other form of mythology, the trouble with something like a Bible story is that there are a considerable amount of people that believe that this.
Believe it. Yeah, that's when people did use that example of Thor when Noah came out, and that was exactly my response. You know, you don't have you don't have half of America believing that Thor is real. You know, you have a subsect of some crazy people, but they number like maybe in like 1,000.
It's been a while since War of the Worlds.
You know,
the radio broadcast.
There's a funny thing here, though. It seems to me like yeah, obviously there's a difference between a movie like Thor, where there are really virtually no adherents of you know, Norse mythology around anymore to worry about, and a movie like Noah. But the idea that these stories are off limits and Hollywood should stay away from them, I think, renders them more sacred. I think it's better when people say, I'm going to make The Last Temptation of Christ. I'm going to make Jesus of Montreal. I'm going to desacralize the story.
One of my favorite movies, Last Temptation of Christ, but that's not what I
love them both. Yeah, Jesus of Montreal, I think, is equally good. I think these are movies that desacralize these stories, and so I actually think it's a good thing when Hollywood does this. Now, these other movies we were talking about, God's Not Dead and A Matter of Faith, I mean, those are just pure agitprop. Those are just, you know, overt pieces of trashy propaganda that misrepresent people, that play to people's absolutely hysterical, paranoid religious fears, while demonizing another segment, an unreligious minority within the population. That I think is terrible. I think.
Are you saying what they're saying is not true? How dare you?
Yeah, I think it's not true. Yeah, I think college professors do not behave this way, and I think that the actors, people like Kevin Sorbo and Harry Anderson, who participate in these kinds of movies, I mean, some of them are religious. Like Dean Cain, I understand he's a Christian. He might believe this. Kevin Sorbo and so Harry Anderson, I don't know, but unless they're sort of all evangelicals and believe this twaddle, then they are complete sellouts. Unless they absolutely believe that stuff, they are complete and utter whores.
Yeah.
I'm just noticed that we've got two people that haven't said anything much yet. Rob S. Prudent, do you want to chime into the conversation, either of you?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I know kind of what you're mentioning, especially with the some of these awful films that have been coming out. I actually have seen God's Not Dead. It was probably one of the worst films I think I have ever seen in my entire life. I just, it's one thing, to at least misrepresent someone, but it's another thing to make probably the most ridiculous straw man that you can possibly conjure up.
Yeah, what I was thinking is it would have been really funny if a ton of philosophy professors in protest would have forced their classes to do exactly that.
They would get in. If that thing happens, though, I mean, but it's like, I can go to. Hold on, though, but it's like if I go to a university, it's like, they give you the syllabus, beforehand, and part of the syllabus says, look, if you have like a religious, issue coming up, like if you have like a religious holiday, like during some time of the course or during an exam, hey, let the professor know and he'll take care of it. So really, it's really the other way around, where no, actually, there are some parts of the class that actually have to kind of make exceptions for certain students' religious beliefs. In certain, I think it's really not so much for the Christian students, I wouldn't think, as much for the Jewish students.
Yeah. Well, I'm Jewish, so I know what it feels like. But I've discussed this before. I've never had a problem with that. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I just haven't seen the movie, thankfully. Nor shall I.
It's a good laugh.
Just from the trailer, the portrayal of what a university classroom is like, and how a university professor in a philosophy class would conduct himself. I mean, you could only believe that if you've never set foot in a philosophy class in an actual mainstream university.
Or any university, just in general.
Yeah.
But the main problem that I'm getting, though, from these kind of films is that they seem to be demonizing, like, public universities. It's like, no, don't send your kid to a public university, otherwise they're going to make him an evil devil worshiper.
Yeah, but they believe that. There's a movement there's a website, a popular Christian website since a few years now, trying to convince parents not to send their kids to secular universities. Because they believe, because it has been demonstrated over and over again, and the religious agree that the higher the chance, the more educated you are, the higher the chance is that you will become a non-believer. You will lose your faith. So there is, I forgot what the website is called, but they try.
You're cutting out.
I think you're having some trouble, Nathaniel. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'll shut up.
No, just turn off your camera and lower your bandwidth unless you have it down all the way.
I think I think also Rob S. said that he wanted to contribute something. Are you here, Rob?
I hear you guys fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, and I have an AC going, so am I causing a like a buzz or anything?
Doesn't seem to be.
It's only a problem when someone else has got their unmuted as well.
Okay. This is like the second time I've ever tried to do one of these, so I really don't have any idea what I'm doing. Anyway, I have not seen any of those movies, so I don't really have anything to contribute on that. So thanks.
Yeah, that's cool. I wasn't sure if we were going to move on to what else we were talking about or not, but
well, we have a second topic that was supposed to be covered on the Magic Sandwich show, which is evolution, creationist style. What are your favourite features of the theory of evolution as understood by evangelical creationists?
Might I toss in an observation about the movies, though? Because I think we're very close to striking on a big irony about the Christian portrayal of what universities are like. And yeah, there is a very strong and effective movement there to keep your kids out of school. Like, don't take your. I mean, to the point now where like you can hear Aaron talk about what it's like in Texas with the homeschooling movement, and don't be fooled into thinking that the homeschooling movement is at all about people having the right to teach their children as they see fit. It is entirely, not entirely. This movement in particular, though, is about keeping the Christian faith active. Right? It's not about quality education. It's not about liberty and freedom. It's about keeping your kids out of a system that might make them not be Christian anymore. And of course, that problem's really enhanced because there's actual data showing that going to college. But I just want to pick up on Ozzy's point about the depiction of, I guess, the overall climate, the tenor of a university, and like that Kevin Sorbo character just nose to nose yelling, almost spitting on this student. I mean, how short would your career be if that's the way you approach that job? And the whole idea that, well, when you go to university, or college, you have to learn the things that they're teaching, and you have to believe them. I remember in my very first intro biology class that there was a statement that was read out along the lines of, we understand that there's, people, sometimes these things are tied to people's religious beliefs. Please understand that at this university we teach evolution as a scientific area, the fact of evolution, that there is a diversity in life, and we don't mean to tread on people's religious beliefs and whatnot. Keep in mind that just like any other course at university, you're here to learn the prevail. I'm very poorly paraphrasing this, but just to capture the spirit of it, you're here to learn the scientist view of the prevailing theories explaining the diversity of life, and more importantly, the processes by which we have come to learn these things and develop these theories. At no point is it a requirement of passing the course that you actually believe these things. Right? You're there to come to understand them. You don't have to believe them. Now let's go across the street to your average post-secondary evangelical Christian educational institution. Could you imagine saying, well, I'm an atheist, but I want to learn more about what evangelicals think. So I'm going to go and I'm going to take their Bible studies classes, and I'm going to take their biblical basket weaving courses or whatever they teach at these colleges, and say I want to learn these things, and I want to come to understand better the theological and philosophical principles that make up this viewpoint. But in your classes, you're like, oh yeah, no, I'm learning this stuff, but I don't agree with it. You'd be gone. They'd just
well, I was
can't even enroll in those places without signing a pledge.
I was going to say something about that. The majority, or the overwhelming majority of people who have been dismissed from the teaching profession for enforcing their views have been the religious in the last few years. So this is kind of a real sign of projection on their part, as I see it. I mean, you have the case of that one fanatical teacher in high school who basically burned a cross on a kid's arm in a science class with like a Tesla coil or something, and then you have another with who was teaching that creationism is real in science class, and the kid recorded it, and there was a lawsuit, and the teacher got dismissed, and then you have show me the number of atheists that have been dismissed for telling kids, your views are absolutely stupid, and you should change your views. I mean, I don't recall any case involving that.
Well,
yeah. I mean, could you imagine going into a university and in your first year biology class, instead of having the statement read aloud, rather you had to take out of your the back of the syllabus, there was attached a statement of faith, and you had to read and sign the statement of faith, saying that you firmly believe in the theory of evolution and everything it says and everything it means on day one before you learn a thing about it. This is what is required of young Christians. Before you take any of their classes in theology, you have to sign a statement of faith saying that you believe it. and they'll turn around and say, well, this is obviously what's going on in university biology classes, and yet, of course, it's not, and it would not be at all sensible to do so. It's nuts.
Faculty at many universities, at many evangelical universities and colleges, William Lane Craig teaches at Biola University. All of the faculty
Your
there.
microphone just getting a little bit of sort of feedback. Not feedback, sort of like connection, like it's slipping out or something.
If someone's got some serious mic, I don't know. I was just trying to identify who it was. Someone's got some mic crackle, whether it's a bad cable or
yeah,
plug-in.
I'm hearing it too. How about now?
Well, I was muted, so.
Okay. Are people still hearing it?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's me. I think I'll pop out and I'll head back in.
No worries.
I actually did want to say one thing though regarding, I guess, sort of like the thing where some people might be threatened. I do have a friend of mine. I think she is like a young Earth creationist. She did say like in one of her classes, because she does go like to a secular college. She did feel like somewhat like threatened, like when she was told like in a geology class that hey, the world, it's kind of stupid to believe that, or at least that's the way she saw it. That yeah, it's kind of stupid to believe in a young Earth. But because obviously pretty much all the evidence goes around and indicates that pretty much everything in geology indicates a world that is 4.5 billion years old, and so there might be some areas like where if you just teach them like the straight up methods and the straight up consensus, that's almost going to feel like a big threat almost to some evangelicals.
Yeah, but this is the difference. Okay, this is the major difference here. The movie is positing something which the teacher is trying to stress, which is unprovable. Okay, you don't go to science class and learn things which are unprovable. You go to science class and you learn that evolution is absolutely real. That's a provable fact. It has been demonstrated. But you don't go to philosophy class and ever have somebody saying, God doesn't exist. Or if you do, it's part of a debate, discussion, whatever. It's not part of your passing grade to actually believe that God doesn't exist. So the movie posits a complete straw man in the fact that in a sense they can't actually make a movie that says, well, you know what, quote unquote evolutionists, Darwinists believe this and this about evolution and force you to believe it, because scientists can just say, yeah, well, that's a provable thing. So they have to make a movie, they have to make a straw man out of it and say, well, in philosophy class you get told that God isn't real, because that's a completely unprovable thing, and so they can make whatever they want out of it. It's just the whole thing is completely fabricated. Had they made a movie where the kid goes in and learns that evolution is real, then they'd actually have a case, because it is, and it's provable, and that's what you learn in biology class. That's the basis of biology.
Yeah, but this is... Oh, sorry, I just wanted to say...
No, you go ahead.
That's why I'm very interested in how this next sort of fundy movie, A Matter of Faith, is going to be, because from the trailer that I've seen, it's an even worse straw man than God's Not Dead, because they basically show that the biology professor, like the straw man biology professor in this movie, clearly really has no idea what evolution is, and neither do I think the filmmakers. Yeah. They actually present it as, where the professor's like, I'm going to show you how the egg turns into a chicken, and it's like, well, that's not evolution, that's just development. that has nothing to do with changing allele frequencies in the offspring of a certain organism. That's how stupid this is gonna get. In it gets even weirder, the part where like the father's upset because he wants to raise his daughter to be a Christian, a full-on even full-on biblical creationist, and says, well, how come biblical creationism isn't taught as an alternative? And you just have to facepalm yourself after that, because it's like, okay, why not teach Muslim creationism? Why not teach Hindu creationism as well? Why not add every bit of creationism that you can possibly get into the curriculum if you're going to really complain about it that much?
Yeah, it is funny though how little he knows. I haven't seen the full movie, but even from the clips, how little he knows about it. And in terms of like I guess the level of knowledge is actually lower. This is it appears inconceivable, but that professor's knowledge of evolution is actually lower than your average YouTube Christian. And by that I mean that the Christians who engage us, at some point they have to stop saying at least some of the stupid shit they say. They do learn at least a little bit. But this guy...
Have you spoken to G-Man recently? Or?
Well, actually, that's the funny thing about it. Is I know, you know what? Yes, I have. I have asked him to please give me a definition of an. There's a somewhat, I don't know if people found it funny or not. We're in a hangout, and I'm going to recount a small part of the hangout with you. When he was on about how people aren't apes, I said, okay, well, what is an ape? Can you give me a definition of an ape? And he said, well, go to the zoo. And I said, go to the zoo, because. Because that's the level of conversation we're having. So I've since followed up with Skype, and we've had good civil conversations since then. And I've said, well, just look it up. Just find me what is the definition of an ape. How do I recognize what is an ape and what is not? Actually, it's funny because about a week after that conversation, I actually, in fact, did go to a zoo. Not for that reason, but I took my kids there. And, you know, I saw some things that I would consider apes. I also saw sea otters, and I saw an elephant, and other things that I would think are not an ape. So I quite often lately, and I picked this up from Aaron, to be honest with you, I've been asking Christians a lot. When they say that people are not apes, I'll say, well, what is an ape? I just need you to give me your definition for what you think an ape is. And I'm ready with responses for what I anticipate will be a range of possible solutions. And I'm stuck because they won't even give an answer.
They'll say
right?
something. I'm guessing they'll say something like, "Well, ape kind."
Yeah, but that's easy. That's easy. You know,
Yeah.
what is the what is the ape kind? Tell me. And by the way, I'm one of the few people who don't jump on the word kind. I know a lot of you guys will, when you get into a discussion with a creationist, you know, it's almost like you wait for them to say the word kind so you can say, well, what's a kind? And you know what? I just use the word kind the way it is expressed in the Bible, the way that we use it casually, linguistically. And when applied to biology, I just replace it in my head with the word clade, because there is an ape kind, right? When you can take animals and you can take all living organisms and you can divide them into two groups: those that are ape kind and those that are non-ape kind. Just like you can take people and say these are, you know, the human kind, and then these are not humans. Now, it would happen to be that everybody you put in the human kind would also be in the ape kind, because any sensible definition for ape would necessarily include would include humans. But I want to address your point about but they never give me an answer. They never say, you know, and ask them like for a set of traits, like apes have flat fingernails as opposed to rounded claws, you know, things like that. They never go to stuff like that because they obviously don't know. But in terms of this sort of having conversations with them and then not getting, it's almost like they're not listening. Is I've been asked by G-Man, I don't know how many times, can you give me some evidence of one kind turning into another? And I say no, because under your definition of kind, under my definition of kind, things don't turn from one kind into another. Mm-hmm. And then you'll say, like, you got to give me, like, what are you looking for here? And then he'll use the famous phrase you've heard him say so many times: give me some evidence of a dog, you know, giving birth to a non-dog. And I say it never happens. It never happens. That Robbie, I think he goes by Robbie Romance now, did a great video where he showed, it was under 2 minutes, where he showed, I cannot give you evidence of dogs giving birth to non-dogs, but I can show you how dogs came from non-dogs. Mm-hmm. And I posted in the comments, I said, that's great, now do the other half of that video. Like, he traces back dog lineage to ancient Myacoids. Did I get the wrong one now? Mm-hmm. And so what you got to do now is make another video where you trace back domestic cats to that same ancient carnivore.
Well, I had this hypothesis in that one of the reasons they keep using this phrase, you know, one thing turning into another, is because they are so imbued with the sense of magic that they can't comprehend anything without it, without magic somehow working. So one thing turning into another thing, that's something that they can understand even though they'll dismiss it. They can't actually understand change over time because there's literally no magic involved.
I do want to say one thing. I think it was last Sunday, or it could have been 2 Sundays ago. I made sort of a video for G-Man as well, and basically my point was this: when you ask for, this is why the question is completely nonsensical. And what I did was I showed him like the Tree of Life project, like their website's pretty good, and I showed him like, look, this is how all these clades are subsets of other clades. So when you ask for a dog to turn into a non-dog, why not ask, or a canine into a non-canine? That's the more specific term. I basically said, okay, why not show a eutherian turn into a non-eutherian? How about a mammal turn into a non-mammal? How about a therapsid into a non-therapsid? And I kept going back and forth until I finally made it back to eukaryotes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
But that's the whole thing, though. I mean, it is a little difficult, though, for some, because it is sort of a difficult concept, I think, for some to grasp. Like, if you go to the Tree of Life and you have to say, okay, here are all the well-known clades that we define every living thing, and here are all the subsets. I think, even if you try to bring them, the actual view of evolution, and not like all the stuff, that some may have heard, stuff from like Ray Comfort or Kent Hovind, just because they're so ingrained to that kind of stuff, they'll use those arguments even no matter how irrelevant they are, and you can continually tell them how irrelevant their arguments are. It's really not going to make a difference.
Well, I'm at a distinct disadvantage when trying to talk to these people because I really cannot put myself in their shoes. I guess I'm lucky because I never was indoctrinated in this crap, and I never believed in this crap. And when evolution was explained to me, it just seemed very natural, a natural progression, and I understood it, as did everyone else in my class. I mean, I was not like alone and unique. So it's very difficult for me to actually get into their worldview. I can accept that they have that worldview, and I can understand what they're saying based on that worldview, but it's very hard for me to actually, in a sense, grok what they're saying in terms of all the misinformation they're just throwing out there about magical processes and stuff.
Well, this is sort of the tactic I think I try to use with creation, or the young Earth creationists. Basically, here's what they'll base. A lot of them will admit that you can have the quote unquote microevolution, that whole all that shit, and obviously you can explain. They'll accept that small changes can happen over small periods of time. So by their logic, then what is exactly the genetic barrier that's stopping all this change from happening? Couldn't it continuously go on for years to come? All you basically have to do is just try to convince people that the world is old, and logically they would have to accept that big changes probably have occurred.
Yeah, but you know as well as I do, as well as everybody in here, that they won't accept that just for dogmatic reasons. I mean, you literally can, look at the debate with Thunderfoot. G-Man had with Thunderfoot. Was it 2 weeks ago? Thunderfoot got him to agree initially to certain things. Okay, that I forget what it was, but evolution was change over time. I think he got him to agree with that. And as soon as he brought him up to a certain point, G-Man kept just flailing wildly with these things about, it's that you're talking about macroevolution, and Thunderfoot was like, no, I didn't even say anything about, macroevolution or microevolution, or, we haven't even gotten to that point yet. Stop projecting, and just let's go step by step. And he wouldn't do it because any sort of acceptance. Like Ray Comfort. Ray Comfort had that debate call-in show with Matt Dillahunty a couple of years ago on the Atheist Experience, and I think Jeff D was there, or I think maybe
it was Russell.
Russell, okay, yeah. And Matt gave the, because Ray was like, well, why, if we still have, why if we evolved from apes do we still have apes? And Matt said, okay, let's take an example, a cogent paradigm. Sorry. He said something to the effect of, most Romance languages evolved from Latin. First you had Latin, and then they slowly over time split into, Spanish and French and Italian. He said, do you accept that? And Ray wouldn't even concede that. He said something like to the effect of, well, if you say so. And he said, yeah, well, we know that. We see it in the documents. He's like, well, if you say so. Like he wouldn't accept that. He wouldn't acknowledge that, because just the mere acknowledgement of it would bring him one step closer to having to say evolution is true. So you can only bring them so far, and then at that point they'll lose it, and they'll just deny everything. That was a clear example. I mean, he was denying like history itself. That's not even like 5,000 or 6,000 years old. It's just a couple of thousand years old, or if that. It's basically 1,000 years old. Where we know the evolution of language, we see it in the documents. We see.
Well, the thing is, he doesn't know. Comfort.
I think he knows. I think he just isn't. He's denying it for the plain reason that if he said yes, that's true, then it would be just demonstrable that evolution has just been explained to him, and that he agreed with a form of evolution. I think it was.
Let me try it differently then. Let me not say that he doesn't know. I guess that implies that he would be unfamiliar with it. I guess what I mean is say that you know something or believe it. He's so incredibly disinterested in things like that. See, when you talk to these guys, and this is one thing, it's so hard to put yourself in their shoes, because you know how we all are kind of generally curious about a number of things in the world to varying degrees. There are some things we're not terribly curious about. I'm not necessarily that interested in how, like, the fashion industry works, like how they decide where to put sequins and stuff. I don't care about that stuff. But if you were going to do an oil change in a what's that little diesel, the smart car? If you're going to do an oil change in a smart car and then tell me, well, you have to do it quite a bit differently than a normal car, I'd be, oh, really? And I'd be interested in finding out, even though I don't do oil changes. I used to, but I don't anymore. And I'm probably never going to own a smart car. I'm still interested, a little bit. But these guys, they are not interested in anything that isn't related to the Bible, which means they're only interested in terms of discussing the real world. The only things they're interested in are little tidbits of trivia that are consistent with the Bible, which they then say, well, this proves the Bible. And second, things that are discussed in the real world that are inconsistent with the Bible. Those things they really want to engage. So you want to talk about whether or not humans are part of the great apes. They'll engage you on that. But if you want to talk about how light, like what is mechanistically why light bends around a supermassive black hole, they don't know that stuff. They accept it. I guess they won't argue against it. But really, you may as well, to raise an issue like that with Ray Comfort is like wanting to have a discussion with me about, the fashion industry. They don't care.
I mean,
sorry, can I just quickly ask DPR, because I think a lot of us are wondering. You have a website up with looks like a Darwin's tree. I mean, it looks like a fractal. Is that just a coincidence?
You got both right. Yeah, and actually I do. My wife just stopped by to remind me. We do have to step out here shortly. So this was one tidbit that I wanted to show people. This was something we were going to introduce today on the Magic Sandwich Show. I imagined I had not. I mean, I mentioned this to Aaron a couple of years ago when I first encountered this thing. Back before he and I corresponded at all. So back when he had thousands of subscribers, he didn't reply to me. But so I wanted to see if he'd seen this or not yet. I would like to introduce this. You might have to click on my place in the film strip to give me focus so others can see. I think Quantum has to do it because you're the host, right?
So what do you know what I mean? Like, do I have to click on
on the film strip on the bottom of the Hangout window? You have to click on mine so there's a blue box around it.
Yes, I've done that.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Is that
there
me too.
Okay, sorry. I didn't realize you had to. Okay, I didn't realize I had to. Anyway, so this is. I'll give you the website address. It's www, and you have to put the 3 W's up front. www.onezoom.org, and it is a you're correct, Quantum, on both scores. It is a map of the tree of life, and it's a fractal image. I think they call it. I'm embarrassed because I made a point of memorizing this before the show, and then I forgot it. But I believe it's called fractal-inspired fractal-inspired interactive graphing. Somewhere in there's the word fractal, and there's graphing and interactive. So the problem is you try to draw out the tree of life. At some point, you just get such fine branches, and then you got stuff crashing into each other and whatnot. So this is actually an image that's inspired by fractals. So it's got that sort of arc, that weird loopy arc to it, and it spirals away thinner and thinner and thinner. But you can go to any place on it. So we'll go and just look at mammals. And oops, and you know what I should have done? Click. There we go. When you zoom in on any part of it, it has that effect that's very familiar with fractals, and they seem to have changed the controls, or it's working different for me in Chrome. Can I? Oh, I can pan. Okay. Let's go over to rodents. Right. You see the image no matter where you go in the image. Double click. It's recursive, right? The image looks the same at whatever level of zoom. And I've gone back to this page.
You can use your mouse wheel to zoom in and out, and you can click and drag to pan.
Okay, you know what? That's the problem I'm having, because I'm not. I'm on a notebook with a touchpad, and every time I go through this, you can click left click and drag to pan, and then mouse wheel to zoom in and out. And now that I don't have a mouse wheel on this thing, I've confused myself. Yeah. But I mean, it's been kind of handy to sort of remind myself of some of the strange features, like elephant shrew and elephant are actually surprisingly closely related. Mm-hmm. You know, but it's been a really, really helpful resource. You know, when you discuss things with people. The one thing I wish somebody would do. These are only. How do I say this now? The good folks at OneZoom developed this software to help envision the tree of life, but they also have an eye towards. Here's kangaroo mice. The leaves are different colored, so there's an eye towards conservation. Oh, by the way, one more thing about the fractal. You notice, too, that even where you've got a branch that comes off this guy and then another branch here, they can never collide because it's a fractal image. No matter how many branches you do, the branches will never start to overlap. It's kind of neat. The leaves are different colors, indicating their conservation status, which if you are interested in the status of these various organisms, they're all on here. And clearly they have environmental issues in mind when they make this thing. The thing that they don't necessarily have in mind is us having this discussion with creationists, or us trying to want to inform ourselves about let's say, the grand tree of life of all extinct and extant creatures. So when you go in here and you zoom in on some of these things, if one of these species is known but is also known to be extinct, there won't be a leaf on here for it. So, for example, when you do find the hominids and you find yourself all the way to Homo and Homo sapiens, you actually won't find, for example, Neanderthal and Erectus and Habilis, like other human-like creatures won't be on here. And in a way, I wish that somebody would make an image that has more nodes to it, showing our understanding, at least, of here's primates over here, of the extinct and extant animals, because it would be a neat way to depict. The other thing too is they have here too, like when the bifurcation took place. Here's 91.9 million years ago. There's the bifurcations to over here you got your primates and your flying lemurs and whatnot, and then your primates here. There'll be a node here telling you how long ago that was. 90 million years ago. Primates. I just find it a really, really invaluable resource.
Yeah, it's a really cool site, and thanks for showing this to us, by the way.
Well, if I'm going to play maybe devil's advocate creationist, I guess I would probably say, well, all that stuff was just made up.
Well, I'll give you that. Not that I would concede that it's made up. I just posted the link in the chat if you wanted to also add it to your video description.
I'm just saying,
I would concede that. there's no proof on this thing. I mean, and this, by the way, you guys were talking before about. I mean, maybe this I think would be a great discussion topic. One I wouldn't be able to join right now, but would be how to talk to creationists, because as Nathaniel pointed out a while ago, it's sometimes hard to put yourself in their shoes. Like, but there are some kind of rules of thumb of things that you can and can't say, and one of them is I guess you have to sort of carry your referee's whistle with you sometimes. So that's the kind of thing a creationist would say. And so I'm showing you this tree. This is an interesting way of depicting what is understood about the biodiversity of extant life. And if I were to show this to a creationist, I'm quite sure one of the first things he or she would say is, well, that doesn't prove evolution. Okay, well, this is not a page of the proof of evolution. This is a remarkable guide on what is understood about biodiversity, again, only amongst the extant animals. But then if you go into mammals here and you go into primates and then you say, well, one of these little nodes on here is going to be the great apes. There isn't proof on here. There aren't any fossils on here. There isn't any DNA on here. It's a computer program that helps. I've lost my primates. It's a computer program that helps you visualize something. And if you want to find out, you're not going to find out from the way I'm navigating, but if you go into primates and go down to great ape, you'll find that these nodes are also clickable. We need to get ready. It's Father's Day. Here we go. So we go to this node, apes and humans. And once you get close enough to the node, see there's a lot more text that suddenly appears.
Yeah.
And in here is going to be a wiki link. There it is.
Yeah.
So every one of these nodes, I mean, the database for this thing is partly the reason why it's kind of running a little clunky for me, because I'm trying to do a hangout and run this. The data that's in this fractal image is remarkable, including active links to wiki pages. So I click on that, and then now, I don't know if it's screen sharing, but there's the Hominoidea website, wiki page. And again, you can learn a lot about this stuff. Again, the wiki page doesn't contain proof. Yes, I know. Oh, you have a ponytail today. That's pretty good. It doesn't contain fossils, but of course, like a good wiki page, it has references.
Yeah.
So, you know, the next time a creationist says something like that, like, oh, well, this, you know, fractal image doesn't prove evolution. Well, no, it's starting point. If you want to research what, go look up ape on here. It'll take you to a wiki page. The wiki page will take you to these see also section, right? And there's other stuff you can read. If you really give a damn about learning this stuff, there's an invaluable resource here for you to look at. Certainly don't pitch this page as like proof. And if they ever say, well, this isn't proof, you got to really smugly just be like, I didn't say it was proof. All right.
Well, you know, just the fact that, can y'all hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Just the fact that there's ring species existing right now, that refutes their entire, you know, never seen a species change. I mean, there's a species right now that's, you know, changed through space instead of through time. I've never heard them try to defend the ring species.
I have.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it for you, and then I really do have to go. If you're curious, or did someone else want to take this one?
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Right. Here's the thing. So, in original creation, each animal was created, you know, after its own kind, blood, and there were only a limited set of animals on the ark. And again, we're going to limit this to animals. It's interesting when they talk about evolution too. They only talk about animals. They quite often forget to discuss plants. But anyway, so when you look at something like the elephants, right? They didn't need all the various species and subspecies of elephants. They only needed the original elephants, whether it was 2 pair or 1 pair or 7 pairs. I know. 1 second. But anyway, let's go to dogs. The original dogs that were on the ark contained all of the genetic information for all modern dogs. And once the dogs went out and spread forth around the world, in our fallen world, their DNA started to degrade, and they would lose information. So the original dogs had enough information in their DNA to be like whole, pure dogs. But now, a lot of that information was lost, and now you have the Pekingese that have lost the St. Bernard DNA information, and you've got the Dobermans that have lost the Poodle DNA, and Dobermans are these degraded, degenerate. I can only be a Doberman now. I can never breed to produce a different type of dog. I know, Janet. Hang on, I'm talking to somebody. Right. Remember, their whole view is that you can't add information. In fact, you keep losing. I know. 1 second, Janet. I'm almost done here. And with ring species, they'll say if you had some finches or some lizards or some whatevers, and they were at this one place, the original ones that were there had all the information, and then as you get further and further away from the original ones and further along in time, they're still breeding after their own kind, but they're losing bits and chunks of their information here and there, and at the end of the process, you've got some degraded ones that live over there, and some other degraded ones that live over there, and they're degraded differently, so they can't interbreed with each other. That's the explanation I've heard from them a number of times. So it would be a mistake to define kind to say that, well, if and only if they can interbreed, then they're of the same kind. Because it's more, what they're saying is, if they are not of the same kind, they certainly can't interbreed. You can't interbreed a mosquito and an elephant, right? But not all mosquitoes can interbreed with each other. There is only one, mosquito kind, and perhaps only one fly kind. That's one thing I'd love to ask them. Is a mosquito a type of fly? Every biology in the world will tell you that mosquitoes are dipteran, just like a housefly or a horsefly. Mm-hmm. But creationists don't know the difference. Anyway, they don't look. It raises the issue of what you mean by how much, what is this dog information? But they picture that there's some sort of capsule of information in the original dogs, and now the Chihuahuas have a subset of the original dog information, and the St. Bernards have a different subset of the original dog information, and that's why they can't interbreed.
They actually think wolves and coyotes are dogs too. Aren't those dog kind or not?
Well, there's something you always have to flesh out. I know, Janet. It's something you have to flesh out fairly early in a conversation with them, how they want to use the word dog, because they will always correct you. The word dog doesn't have a scientific meaning. I quite often use the word dog to refer to domesticated dog. That is, that they would be a subset of the wolves.
Gray wolf, to be more particular.
The gray subset of specifically the gray wolves, yeah. So I've had conversations with them where I'll talk about wolves and coyotes and dogs and foxes and things like that, and then at some point when you say, well, these are descended from, they'll go, well, you know what, wolves are dogs too. You go, oh, okay, so you're using it that way. But you also run into trouble if you start using the word canine or canid, because the words canine and canid are different in formal biology. Now we say canine very sort of generally, but the actual clade name canine refers to a very, very specific subset of the caniform carnivores. So, if you're going to get into that discussion with them, it's a good idea to sort of make sure that you know what the divisions are, starting right back from, I'm going to say myocoids again, and I'm sure I've got the wrong one, what the divisions are. Let's go back to the original feliform and caniform carnivores, and make sure you follow the caniforms down all the way through, and just make sure you have a good grasp on where the foxes branch off, where the bears branch off, where the foxes, the coyotes, and everything else, and sort of follow that stuff down and have a good grasp on the difference between a caniform, a canid, a canine, and then agree with the creationist on dog. Do you mean canids, or do you mean canines, or do you mean puppy dogs that live in our houses?
I think that's a really good explanation, actually, what you just gave. I mean, I've heard it countless times from them, but they always seem to mess it up far more than you just have, for some reason.
Well, I mean, that's just what they believe, and what's funny about it's so obviously, I mean, then you have to ask them what they mean by information, because the thing is to say that there is dog information that used to exist in these ancient dogs, whether that includes, coyotes, maybe it includes foxes. If you try to pin them down on this and sort of work your way back up the tree, say, okay, so you believe dogs and wolves and coyotes are all from the same, dog kind or canine kind, whatever you want to call it. Well, what about foxes? Some will say yes. Most will say I don't know. Okay, well, what about bears? because, well, definitely not bears, and yet it's unquestionable in the fossil record.
Yeah,
Especially when you look at the geology of it, geography. Geography.
Yeah.
There's clearly populations of ancient caniform carnivores that are migrating about and then splitting off into this bear
bears
group
and
and dog
mastiffs
group.
bears and mastiffs are very, very closely related, actually.
Yeah, so they just have a leg to stand on when they, you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, the funny thing is that they, in a sense, they believe in this super animal for each one on the ark, like a super dog, like with all the perfect features. Which, I mean, try to imagine every single feature of dogs today combined into one. It would look ugly as hell, but I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure how it would look. But yeah, I mean, it makes no sense, but it is a very interesting way that you put it. Described it, I should say.
Yeah, and I will have to go back and read down. I think I'm mixing up Myacoid and Myacid. I always get those two backwards, but it's M-I-A-C-I-D and M-I-A-C-O-I-D. Myacoidia, I think, is the family or the super family that I'm thinking of. That when you look at them, some people would say it looks like a dog. I think more people would say it kind of looks like a cat.
Yeah.
But again, we have a geographically distributed fossil record
in for it.
Oh, good.
If you look far up into the chat, I have a link for the common ancestor to dogs and cats.
Yeah, Aaron Ra has a lot of good stuff on that in his myriad videos.
Yeah, didn't he post a video with a terrific Tree of Life, like computer folder breakdown? I forgot, like it was a recreation of some database that he uses or something.
Yeah, no, it's not. I want to tell that story, and then I really do have to go. This is part of the reason why, knowing that Aaron and I were going to be on the show today, why I wanted to bring up the OneZoom Tree of Life, is because what he had done was he sat down in Windows Explorer and made folders and subfolders, and he went through and he'd click on them and then would screen cap them. And what it was is because he was trying to think, how do I explain to people cladistics? How, like kinds are like, well, here's a kind, there's a kind, there's a kind, but cladistics, you have clades within clades within clades, and it's very important to use. It is important to use monophyletic nomenclature so that everything within this clade is within that clade. You don't say things like, well, this clade includes all of the stuff except for the stuff that's within it. We're not going to call it that. This one little subgroup. The way that people say of apes. Well, apes include all of these animals that have these features, the shoulders that rotates, the flat fingernails and fingerprints, but does not include humans. You know what I mean? Like you sort of have to define the one group out and weird stuff like that. So you're trying to think, well, how do I explain it? And of course, at the time, you think, well, computers. Everybody knows how to use a computer. So he sat down and he made this folder hierarchy, and he would click through and show subfolders and subfolders and subfolders. And everybody who saw that went, "That is great! I really, really, really need to get that software." And they were just super excited to get this piece of software, but it wasn't software. Nobody had actually written the software. It was him sitting down with his computer.
Yeah, so, he did mention that he uses a database that is similar to that, but it's no longer like updated or something. I can't remember the story.
Yeah.
But I remember
you've seen the video. Pardon me for interrupting, but I do have to go.
No. Go ahead.
But so you'd seen the video where he talks about this, where people were contacted. So I'm sort of retreading. Maybe not everyone who's seen this, because I kind of want to end on this note. Part of the reason why I wanted to introduce this topic on Magic Sandwich today, and letting you guys talk about it, is because one thing that we assume in this community is that, look, if you're an atheist on YouTube or a non-believer, anyone involved in this discussion on YouTube, of course you've seen every episode of the Foundational Falsehoods of Creationism, and it's no longer true. Those things are pretty old. Now he's working on the books that go with it. That's going to be interesting stuff. But there's getting to be new people that are joining this conversation that will not have been exposed to that material and won't remember this funny thing that happened when he sat down and did those folders, and then people were like, "Oh, that's great," and then he told people about this other software, but then they weren't updating it, and he was sort of putting out a general plea like, "Come on, we need to have something to organize this stuff." And I think OneZoom has stepped up somewhat. Again, they only do the extinct. The extant animals, but no. So that's the sort of the thing I wanted to mention and really encourage you guys that to sort of I kind of wanted to get Aaron talking some more about the Foundational Falsehood series. Again, he's almost done the book on it, and to sort of remind people that these things are out there, and to sort of get people watching those things again, because there's so many of these questions that come up. Like this whole thing about myocardia, he did a video series, a single video where he is like, here's a cat, here's a dog. Let's look at the dog's ancestors. Let's look at the cat's ancestors, and he traces them back to a point. Traces it back to the same organism, and he shows like this would have been the progenitor for all of modern dogs, wolves, or all that stuff. This would have been the one for all the lions and tigers and house cats and everything else. To put the two of them side by side, you couldn't tell the difference. They may have been litter mates. So I really encourage people to go back and start watching the Foundational Falsehood series again, and start making your own video content.
I just rewatched it a few months ago. I had seen it years ago, but I sent it to a friend of mine recently, like about 6 months ago or so, and I just ended up rewatching it because I was like making a playlist out of it, and you're right.
And people should be making, and actually I see Quantum is looking for, or sorry, is suggesting we get a little closer to wrapping up here. So let that be my concluding statement, is that I think people should rewatch those things, and remember there's a whole new generation, I put in quotation marks because a YouTube generation is about 2 years, a whole new generation of viewers out there. We should be producing content. Don't watch Foundational Falsehoods number 14 and then say, oh, well, that's a good point, but there's no point in me making a video on it because Aaron Ross said it 6 years ago. That wasn't that long ago, but you get my point. If you see it and you think it's interesting, make your own video content. Take out single points from the stuff he was doing there and say, here is something, even though this series is out here, creationists are still saying this thing. So I'm going to make a video where I'm going to say in my own words that this information is available on YouTube, but just last week I was in a hangout where this guy said this, and let me tell you in my own words what the truth of the matter is and get that laid out there.
I just have one question before you leave. You've argued with a lot of creationists on the internet over the years. Have you ever actually convinced somebody that they're wrong?
Yes. But again, this is potentially a long answer to that. I'm going to say, it's going to sound like a Christian, how if you ask a Christian if they've ever convinced somebody to come to Christ, they'll say, well, no, I haven't. It's up to the Holy Spirit. So let me say, I have never actually convinced anyone of the truth of any single point of evolution. Rather, it is the spirit of rationality that has moved through them and worked through me to have this happen. But yeah, it's happened. I think I will tell you, it has not been Nephilim free. Those are guys. I've had conversations where I've been able to say, okay, so you believe this? Well, what about this? What about this? And then finally, at the end, have him at the end of a conversation say, oh, okay, I didn't really look at that. Well, I'm gonna have to look into that some more. And then the next day, you'll go back into like Shock of God's chat room, and they will say exactly the same thing, word for word, they said before they had this epiphany. A lot of them are like talking to that character from the movie Memento, where they've got that what's it called, anterograde amnesia. They just simply can't encode new memories. It's like they could say, oh, gee, that's a good point. So there is a fossil chain going back from modern dogs and modern cats back to ancient myocardia, and they're identical. And you can see in the geography, well, that's interesting. Well, I'm going to have to do more research into that. Well, the next day they're going to be saying, I've never seen the dog give birth to kittens. Like they started the whole thing.
Say, Hogtie, have you seen?
Sorry, to answer the question real quick, is it yes? But it's only with younger ones who are open-minded and want to learn stuff, and I have had it happen a number of times where they say, oh, well, that doesn't sound right to me. I'm going to look this up, and I'm going to get information that comes back and proves you wrong, only to have them not talk to me for 4 or 5 months, and then later contact me on Skype and say, hey, guess what happens? It turns out that I'm now a theistic evolutionist. And then 2 years later, you get another message from him saying, oh, now I'm an atheist. Not very often, though, but it happens. Sorry to the long-winded about it, but it's not an easy question.
One quick question, Hogtie, before you go. Have you paid any attention to Chris Mooney's recent work?
I feel I should know who Chris Mooney is.
He's a guy that wrote, Republican War on Science. He was doing the Point of Inquiry podcast for CFI for a while, and he has his own podcast now. But he's been doing a lot of work on the Republican brain, why these people can't, the science of why we don't believe in science. He just did a course, online course called that. His last book was called The Republican Brain. I can't see the subtitle here, but he's shown that there's a lot of data that just says a logical argument with them is as likely, if not more likely, to make them believe less, and be less logical.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about now, but I'm going to admit I have not read any of the original material. And can I ask you to do me a favor and send me some links to resources that I can access that are more direct? The only places I've heard about them are through secondary citations. Like I know that Anna Kasparian has said some things about them lately, and there have been a couple other YouTubers that have sort of made reference to some of that material. And you don't really learn. I mean, the secondary sources like that kind of guide you like a lighthouse to where something interesting is, but you have to really sort of look at the original material. So I'd appreciate if you could send to me, and I'm Hogtiechamp on Gmail and G+ and whatnot. So if you could send some of that stuff to me, I'll definitely take a look at it. And I'm going to offer as apology and excuse that you got to understand too, and I'm at some point there. Actually, I think when I'm on Maudi's show, one of the topics we're going to talk about is why I'm sort of half-assed engaged in what's going on here. I don't know if you've seen me or we've met before or whatever, but I live in Western Canada, and I find it difficult at times to be interested or engaged in American issues related to, for example, why the Republican Party does what it does. Like you guys are like this, my crazy aunt and uncle and their loony, like barefoot cousins of mine that are just running around hitting each other with sticks. I really don't know what's going on in your country sometimes, and again I don't want to go into this too much now because I'll be talking about it with Maudi when I'm on his show, but why a Canadian would even be interested in putting up the Periscope to try to get some involvement in the culture war. But I want to say somewhat apologetically, I have no engagement with your nation's politics. The only reason that I speak in these forums and have now started doing things like Magic Sandwich Show and participating in this is because of my interest and engagement with the scientific issues that are in interplay with your culture war. But the politics of it, I just, what do I do?
Yeah, his work has really to do with creationists. That's almost a synonym for Republican. In this case.
Well, I would venture to guess, Hogtie, that you are most likely left of center on most issues in terms of American politics, as I think most atheists are.
Yeah, again, this is something that Maudi was going to pick at too. I'm well known in my nation as a right-wing conservative. Yeah. No, it's true, but yeah, I'm a gun-owning wingnut and whatnot, but that's Canada, man. Like, I mean, our more extreme right-wingers are centrists in the States.
Yeah, well, it's
and
like
the fact that I'm socially liberal.
Yeah. You guys are learning, though, unfortunately.
Well, in Europe, like in England, a Tory would be considered, a middle-of-the-road Democrat or something in America. I mean, you don't have any Tories saying that, we should have no health care whatsoever, etc. It just doesn't happen. Yeah, American politics are a weird animal, frankly.
Yeah, we additionally have things like the Reform Party and Conservative Alliance and stuff, which would be considerably right of what internationally is known as the Progressive Conservative Party. There's some diversity in there. I don't want to venture too far down the discussion of Canadian politics, but we do have our version of the Tea Party, and it would be. I mean, not right now, but on again, off again over the years, we've had our kind of right-wing Tea Party folks, but they're just, they're not at all comparable. So I got to thank you guys.
Have a good Father's Day.
Yeah, happy Father's Day.
Certainly strive to do so. All right, have a good Father's Day, you guys as well. See you.
Thanks.
Okay, so well, we've got two choices. We can either continue for a little while, or we can close up now. the reason why I might want to continue is that if this show is exactly 2 hours long, it really helps my format, and it means that I can fulfill my OCD type tendencies and have this episode the right size. So we've done 1 hour and 12 minutes. Well, sorry, not 1 hour and 12. We've done 1 hour and 23 minutes. So the two options are we can either continue for another 40 minutes or we can stop now. What do you want to do?
I don't mind either way.
I've got a question I'd like to ask and get people's input.
So I guess we're continuing for 40 minutes, but we're really not going to go over that. 40 minutes only, and then we're going to have to conclude. Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Well, not many others have been speaking, so.
Well, I assume everyone saw the Matt Dillahunty Side 10 debate.
Yeah.
And probably the Dogma debate after show. And there's something that Cy asked Matt in the debate, and then Smalley asked him after the debate, and he pretty much it was pretty much the same question. He gave pretty much the same answer. And the way I look at it is this completely undercuts his entire position. And it's about what happens when you come across another Christian who has the exact same revelation. You know, God has revealed it to me in such a way that I know it to be true, or whatever the words are, and that they differ. You know, what happens when they differ? And he starts mumbling something about, well, we'll go to Bible study. And then he says, and I will show them, basically, I will show them, you know, where they're wrong. Yeah. So he's basically implying, you know, he's the only one who actually has the real revelation. But if you admit that people can have this revelation and know it to be true, be certain you know it's true, and it's different, then that shows that feeling is bogus. And if any one person can have that feeling and it's bogus, then obviously he's having that feeling and it's bogus, or there's no way for him to prove that it's not bogus. So how does that not just undercut his entire, and it's his own words, you know, undercut his entire position?
I agree with you. It does undercut. I mean, let's face it. His entire argument is idiotic.
Right, but this is showing how it's idiotic in his own idiotic world.
Absolutely, but most idiots reveal themselves to be idiots with their own words. I mean, not through somebody else's. They you know, I mean, you know, Ray Comfort doesn't actually need people to tell him he's an idiot to demonstrate to other people that he's an idiot. He just opens his mouth, and rational, sensible people recognize the fact that he's an idiot. The same happens with Side 10, and might I add, with most other creationists and especially presuppositionists. So yeah, by his own words, he reveals himself how stupid his argument is. But I mean, there are so many other flaws in his argument that you know, Matt sort of spent, you know, whatever it was, an hour and a half discussing the flaws, and you know, he would not admit to a single one. You know, Matt at least took the honest position of when he didn't know something to say, I don't know the answer, I can't prove this. That's the honest answer. I don't think that Cy understands what honest answer actually means. You know, he understands what the word arrogant means, which he attributes to everyone else except for himself, which is actually in of itself a sign of true arrogance. You know?
Yeah, growth projection, basically.
Yeah.
Yes, Cy doesn't really have an argument. He has a claim. He has a claim that he can know things for certain, and he doesn't take any time to prove or try to prove that. He just claims it and then moves on.
No, he has a claim, but his claim is, as long as you accept my claim, then I have an argument.
Yes.
Okay. So but his claim is further compounded with, there is no other claim that you can logically accept, which you know, in of itself, it becomes a super claim, which, you know, is irrefutable in his mind. It's a ridiculous sort of thing.
But it all revolves back to Scripture, though.
Of course.
Right? The foundation of the whole thing is the inerrancy of Scripture.
Yeah. Yeah, he believes Scripture is literally inerrant. And he won't prove to you in what way, because he doesn't do Bible study with atheists. You know,
he won't do it with anybody that's actually a Bible scholar either.
No, I was thinking one day of trying to get Sai-Ten to discuss with me, and then steer him towards discussing the Bible, and then I would tell him, I'm sorry, I don't discuss the Bible with people who don't speak fluent Hebrew. You know, I live in Israel, so yeah.
Did you see his encounter with? Well, there was the show, like over 2-hour show with David Silverberg, Eric Hovan was there, and Michael Jones.
Oh yes, I did watch that actually. Yeah.
And he basically, they kicked him off the show, which, I mean, Michael Jones has got to be one of the nicest guys you can imagine.
Absolutely.
He basically kicked the guy off, but in the, if you watch the entire thing at the end, there's like a back in the hallways or something encounter between Jones and Bugger and Cats, as I like to call him, and it's heated. I mean, Michael Jones is actually really kind of PO'd, and you can tell Sai is also. It's very quick, and it's kind of funny. I can't even begin to try to repeat it. Well, but previously, after they kicked him off the show, Michael Jones, in about 3 simple questions, exposes Eric Hovan's complete ignorance of the Bible, and you know, the fact that he believes in a translation of the Bible. You know, and it's just so, it's actually just kind of almost sad and pathetic.
Well, I mean, Bob Graves, I think it is, took Hogan to the mat. I think it was like 6 months ago or so. Destroyed him him on his show.
I'd like to see that. I have to check that out.
Yeah. What's his show's name? The Unconventional Pastor, I think it is. He had. He may not have been on that show, but Bob was on it, and it just destroyed Eric Hogan, completely destroyed him. But to get back to the point of Sai, I've never seen Sai in a good mood. He's only ever been an arrogant prick who's like angry at everybody.
And you rarely see anybody in a good mood that has had to deal with him for more than 5 minutes. So.
Yeah, but I've never seen. Yeah, dealing with himself, maybe he gets that way. But I've never actually seen him polite, affable, or anything of the sort. I mean, Ray Comfort is an idiot, and I think, frankly, a liar. But at least he's affable. At least he tries to be polite in most cases. I mean, the things that he says I find to be extremely arrogant and well, let's say, ill-advised to call people, like, you know, whoremongering people and murderers and whatever. But in his own way, he's trying to be nice. He's trying to be polite. Sai is just trying to be an asshole. I've never seen him otherwise. I mean, maybe I haven't seen everything about Sai, but has anybody else ever seen him in a good mood?
Not me.
No.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me, actually?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi there. I'm a 28-year-old college student. I'm an atheist, and I actually did watch. I've actually been sort of on a Sai-Ten spree lately, trying to understand his style of counter-apologetics. And sort of like to your point, I actually find Ray Comfort, obviously he's just demonstrably wrong in a lot of places, but I find him quite endearing. I think he's kind of charming. But Sai, yeah, he's just insufferable. He's just completely insufferable. And his style of counter-apologetics is, it's not even like he's trying. It's like, it's childish. It's just childish.
His argument is, I'm right because I'm right.
Right.
And either you accept it, and then you'll be saved, and then I can explain it to you, or you're going to burn in hell. And I won't even bother to explain it to you.
I have a lot of debates with creationists, and while I disagree with them, I can still respect them, but I just can't respect guys like Sai. I think guys like Ray Comfort know. I think Ray Comfort honestly believes what he's saying, even if it's wrong. I think
he believes, but I think he also lies for Jesus in a sense.
Oh, that much I believe. But I think Sai knows he's just selling snake oil. I think he's just full of it, and he knows it, and he's not interested in having a rational dialogue. He's interested in proselytizing and evangelizing. His whole closing statement to the dogma debate, or that was like one big proselyte evangelizing.
I would, you know what? Had I been there, I would have told him off. How dare you tell me I'm going to be tortured for all eternity on your word alone? Fuck you.
Right.
Fuck you. That's what I would have told him. I would have left that argument right there at that. But said, this is the example of an arrogant prick. Anybody who listens to him is also an arrogant prick. I would have walked out. That would have been it for me. Absolutely.
I don't know how Matt tolerated it as long as he did, to be honest, but I thought he did a great job. I mean, if anybody was well suited to go up against Sai's total word salad games, I think it was Dillahunty. I'm a huge fan of his, and I think he was
I agree.
for it.
And the thing is, I don't even agree with Matt on every single issue, but I think he is just fantastic when he debates, and I really admire the guy.
I definitely don't agree with Matt on every issue. But when it comes to theism and his style of counter apologetics, I think he's flawless with it. He's just a beast out there.
I think he's the best debater we have out there right now. He might not have the science background of Krauss or somebody, or that erudite viciousness that Hitchens had, but he's an incredible debater, and he's got that Christian background, which is immensely helpful.
He really is like the pound for pound, like heavyweight champ of debating. Like you can stack him up in any category. But yeah, not a Bill Nye, not a Krauss, not a Sam Harris or anything like that. Maybe doesn't have as big of a name, but he could just destroy pretty much anybody. Which is why, what's the one guy who refuses to debate him? Is it Craig? William Lane Craig?
William Lane Craig, yeah, because he doesn't have a degree.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think he wanted to actually get somebody with a degree for William Lane Craig to agree to debate, and then the guy would pull out at the last moment and nominate Matt to debate something like that. I mean, that would have been great. I think that's the reason, is because William Lane Craig won't debate anyone who doesn't have a degree.
Well, that's just horseshit. Because if I were Matt and he said that to me, that he wouldn't debate me because I didn't have a degree, I would just say to him, "Well, you don't have a degree in anything. You have a degree in theology. That's the study of nothing."
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say.
Absolutely. Yeah, Lawrence Krauss makes a joke of that all the time.
What is the joke?
It's something like, these. I think he makes about philosophers, but he includes theology in there. He says these people are upset about my definition of nothing, which is okay because that's exactly what they're experts in.
That's good.
It's something to I'm paraphrasing, but I think Matt is frankly an incredible debater, and it really helps to have a debater like him who's been there, who's been on the other side, who understands how the other side thinks.
I mean, I come from theism myself. I was a Christian once upon a time, but it was much younger, it was much more vague. I wasn't as into it as Matt was, and Matt just knows. Matt can cite chapter and verse off the top of the head. He just has a detailed knowledge of it, and he's just like I would say my first pick for pretty much any mainstream apologist.
Mm-hmm. Matt has been doing the atheist experience for 10 years or so, and that's like he's not on every week, but whenever he's on, that's a lot of practice.
He's the star of the show. He's the star of the show.
He's definitely the reason why people tune in.
I mean, there's nobody on there that I don't like and that I don't think is doing an incredible job. But I think they all agree that Matt is basically the star of the show. But I think it's because he's been on the other side. There is no other big atheist debater that was on the other side. Dawkins was never religious. Hitchens, heavens forfend. Harris was never religious. Dennett was never religious.
That's true.
None of them were religious.
Michael Shermer. Michael Shermer
was. Michael Shermer, yes.
And Don, the guy from Freedom from Religion or whatever, Don, I forget his last name. He was religious.
I don't know him.
You mean the Clergy Project? We're recovering from religion?
Well, no, one of the major organizations is he's the founder of one of them. Maybe it's Dan.
Dan Courtney.
Dan Courtney. Oh, okay, I barely know him.
I actually just started. I've actually been watching some of his videos too. I just got in touch with him. He's really good too. He actually also had a debate with Sai, like in person. I think he came out to his house or something like that. And if you can find that on his channel, it's amazing, just the tricks side
But
played.
aside from Matt and Schumer, I can't think of any other household names, at least in the atheist circles, that wear religious. It's not that there aren't any atheist debaters who wear religious, but it's that the big stars. Of the big stars, the majority of them were not religious.
What do you guys think about the Bill Nye Ken Ham debate? Because I almost thought Bill Nye was like an inappropriate choice for that debate. Really.
I am on record on the Magic Sandwich Show before the debate, 2 weeks before the debate, saying I agreed with Bill Nye's choice, and I think that he would probably win. And I thought that the people who were against it were much creating much ado about nothing, frankly.
He did win, didn't the poll?
Yes, Christianity Today at 92% thought that he won. So I think it was fairly clear, except in diehard creationist circles, that Bill Nye wiped the floor with him.
He had Pat Robertson on his side.
Can I just say quickly that in case people are interested, we covered this one in detail in the first one of these series of shows. It was episode 1, series 1, that we covered the Bill Nye versus Ken Ham debate. If people are interested in looking at it, okay.
Yeah, not to rehash anything. Sorry.
No,
no problem. I was just in case people wanted to.
I do have to stress that the only other person who agreed with me was DPR, who also agreed that Bill Nye was going to win and that he wasn't dead set against this debate. So I take this as a badge of honor. You see that?
I definitely was not. I'm not concerned about Bill Nye's competency. I'm concerned about the fact that he's even appearing with somebody like. It's just sort of lends credence. Like I don't know where the article was. It's just I think maybe it was Dawkins who said it just lends credence when you have somebody of his stature. It's like talking to a flat earther.
I agree.
A professional geologist to do that. It's just.
But I just discussed this on another show a while back. I just did like last week or a few days ago. I can't remember. It's necessary.
Okay.
The biggest objection was the money, though. The money that he got for
it. I think it's necessary. When Dawkins refuses to debate, I can understand, because Dawkins is a biologist and should not give the impression that there is a debate out there.
Right.
But Bill Nye is not a biologist. He's just a general science educator. I mean, he was an engineer, but he basically he educates people about science. If Tyson had debated him, I would have been okay. I would have been okay with anybody except for a biologist, because I don't think that a biologist should give credence to that quote-unquote theory of theirs. But in terms of addressing the issue, you have to. 50% almost of the country believes in creationism. Yeah. You cannot ignore it. Much as philosophically I would like to, I think that it's like sticking your head in the sand, and look at what it's produced. Look at what the movement of the last 30 years or so of letting, quote unquote, let people do their own thing, even in like fundamentalist religious circles. So it has created an entire sub-society of batshit crazy people that believe in the most inane crap, because they are homeschooled. They have created an entire movement where they can live in this bubble of fundamentalism and never leave it, never be exposed to anything else, and not addressing this in their face at this point is a huge mistake. This is going to keep growing in a sense, and unless we start addressing it. Now, we haven't started to address it, and we see the consequences of it, but I think we have to keep doing it. You cannot hide your head in the sand and just say, well, it's a stupid argument, it'll go away. You can't.
Well, maybe you should say that to Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm sorry, but I'm actually kind of sad that he will not join us on this side to help us.
I agree. Yeah.
Wait, you're talking about Tyson not coming out and out as an atheist?
No, not necessarily, but I'm actually sick and tired that he won't help us. The only time that he will is if it has to do with them interfering with the education system.
Right.
That's the only time, but other than that, he just keeps for himself. He's way too soft. I'm sorry, he really is.
I agree up to a point, but I think there's a utility in that for him, because he can still be trusted by certain religious people who want to point out that science doesn't disprove religion. And I know that it does. I know that it's disingenuous to say that it doesn't. Yeah. We all know it. Sam Harris has made this point ad nauseum. He's right. Richard Dawkins has as well. But you still have to goad certain people into accepting that you can have religion and evolution and cosmology at the same time.
I always looked at Neil like sort of Mr. Popular in high school. He was sort of like, he's sort of nice to everybody. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't want to go too hard. And plus he's playing. It's a smart move because he just, you know, with Cosmos on Fox of all networks, it's just like
Carl Sagan never took an a proactive atheist stand either, and I actually worship Carl Sagan.
Yeah, the whole Cosmos, the new one. And maybe Tyson didn't write it, but it was a, stomping creationist, right and left.
He was still.
There wasn't a single episode they weren't pissed about. I haven't seen it, but yeah.
He was, in my opinion, he was still way too nice. When I watched that thing with both of my Christian parents, he was still way nicer than he had to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, but again,
he's way more nicer. If you actually see some of the lectures he did called The Amazing Meeting, I think that's the only moment I've ever seen him really bash creationism. Is there where he talks about how the Muslims stopped all their scientific journeys.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that one actually, which is why all the stars, a lot of the stars have Arabic names.
Yeah.
Yes, but again, I think he is fulfilling a necessary role. He is the diplomat. We do need some diplomats. Richard Dawkins will say that he is probably not the best person to, he mentioned it actually when it came to Dover versus Kitzmiller, the trial, when the prosecution told him, I'm glad we didn't put you on the stand because you would have absolutely demolished our case, because their case was that you can still be religious and have evolution. They had Ken Miller. Ken Miller was their star witness, and Ken Miller is a Catholic, but he is an incredible biologist. He accepts evolution, and and because of Ken Miller, he destroyed the creationists in that case.
Now, what is this case now?
Dover versus Kitzmiller in Pennsylvania 10 years ago, when Judge Jones.
Yeah, everyone should watch the Nova episode. It's incredible. I've seen it like 3 times. It's amazing. When the guy, I think, was it Behe that was on there?
Behe.
Right?
Michael Behe.
He said there's no publications that discuss some part of evolution. And then
the central nervous system.
Yeah, and the guy goes, well, there's no publication, and then he goes and he grabs this big stack of books and journals and puts it on the counter in front of the guy, and he goes back and gets another stack. He piles like 3 or 4 of these stacks where you can't even see the guy, and he says, "You didn't know about these," or whatever he said. It's an amazing thing.
That really happened, and the fact that, look, Judge Jones is a religious guy, was a Republican judge appointed by George W. Bush, no less. Okay? Yeah. And he demolished the creationists. So if you have a guy like Richard Dawkins basically insulting a guy like Judge Jones, it is very likely that the opposite outcome would have happened.
Yeah.
But you had a guy like Ken Miller, a Christian, a Catholic, who is showing that there is no disparity between believing in a God, a general concept of God, and believing in the science of evolution. Hell, you can even get specific, like be a Catholic and believe in evolution, and that the story of creation is not meant to be taken literally. To him, somebody Judge Jones will be sympathetic to, and I think that you need people like him. You need people like Tyson, even though Tyson is obviously an atheist, right? At the very least, a strong agnostic.
Definitely.
You need people who can appeal to the Judge Joneses out there, to the people who are basically caught on the fence, who don't know enough, and who would come over to the scientific side, if only they can be shown that it's not a threat to their faith. You know.
I just like to put in a word for Judge Jones. He came up with one of my favorite lines, you know, in his opinion, where he called the other side's case breathtaking inanity.
Yes, it's been repeated many times, and he's absolutely right. Yeah, he destroyed their case. I mean, he absolutely decimated. The reason this has not gone to the Supreme Court is because the decision was so absolutely final that there was no chance that an appeal would have been, you know, heard on any sort of cognitive basis whatsoever at that point. So you know, he deserves a lot of credit. And again, he's a religious guy, a Republican appointed by George W. Bush.
Oh, just for the record, the guy I was trying to remember earlier, he's the head of the FFRF, the Freedom from Religion Foundation. It's Dan Barker, and he used to be evangelical when he was a kid.
Yeah, I mean there are a few. There's a guy who hosts that podcast, the Thinking Atheist, I think.
Robert Price. Oh no, the Thinking Atheist. Yeah, he was too. So.
And an amazing podcast that is. He really sounds like a completely professional DJ. I don't know how he does it.
He is a professional DJ.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah, that's what his big thing was. He was doing Christian radio, you know, for years. He was a big shot in Oklahoma Christian radio.
Because he sounds like he could be on NPR or something. I mean, he really.
It's got the voice.
Oh yeah.
It's the voice. It's the cadence. It's the words he chooses. Yeah, I agree. Again, there are tons of atheists who wear religions.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, but in terms of the big debaters, there are very few. There are very few, and Matt, I think, is the best one because he was studying to be a pastor. So obviously, it's some, you know.
What is it that you want us to talk about, Quantum?
So I'm just saying that we've only got 10 minutes left, so I want to start concluding. So I think it would be a good idea if everyone made a concluding statement. I'm not going to do one because I want to talk about what we're doing next week. So if we go from left to right, Dr. Quantum, do you want to start off with saying whatever?
I don't really know what to say. I came in very late, so I don't know what you have been talking about.
Okay. So do you want to start, Nathaniel?
I have no idea what I would say. I know I talk a lot, but it doesn't mean that I have a topic prepared at hand.
Just when we need you to say something, you can't say something.
You know, what can I disappoint. Well, no, I do have something to say. Okay. I did want to, on a completely different topic, I did want to, no, I'll skip that. I don't want to start a whole new conversation. I don't know what to say.
Okay, so, well, okay, I'll do mine first then and talk about what we're doing next, and then you lot can think of something to conclude with, and then we'll finish. Okay, so usually we do this show every 2 weeks, and it tends to be the alternative weeks to the Magic Sandwich Show, because the idea is that people that enjoy the Magic Sandwich Show can talk about stuff in a less ominous environment with no YouTube celebrities, and that's the idea. But of course, the Magic Sandwich Show was cancelled, so this one's an impromptu show. So regarding next week, what I'm going to do is I am going to set up one of these shows for next week, but I'm going to leave it completely open. So what I want people to do is, as well as saying that you're going to attend next week, if you indeed are, can people please also give an idea about what they want to talk about? Because if we don't get enough conversations that people are interested in, it's going to be quite a difficult way to go. So that will be really useful for me. And if this is the first time you've watched this, then please can you add me to your circles, because if you want to join these future shows, because then you'll get an invite every couple of weeks when the next one is. So again, that will be really useful. Make sure you add my page rather than my profile, because I won't respond if you add my profile. My page has the avatar that looks like the one I'm using now, so make sure it's the same avatar as this. There's also a website which I've posted in various places that gives a bit of information about it, so that should explain most of what's going on. So, well, I just want to finally thank everyone that's come on today. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I'm apprehensive about doing this sort of thing at such short notice, because I know people usually don't join until get a week's notice. But I hope it's been reasonably successful. So yeah, that's about it. Have a look at the website link, and if you're interested in doing one next week, then add me to your circles. Right, so that's all I'm going to say. Does anyone else want to conclude with some other conclusory type statements? We've got about 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll say something. That the information I was talking about with Chris Mooney that I'm going to send to Hogtie, I will post here somehow, and on the on this page. I'm kind of new to the Google Plus thing, so I'm a little hazy about it. But I'll post it to where everyone can see it. They can review any of it they want. That might be a good topic, or at least a subtopic to discuss, because I think it's very, it bears on a whole lot of what we discuss all the time.
There's a sidebar on the right. I don't know if you see it, but you can type stuff in there if you can give us the link.
Right. Well, how long is that there forever?
Well, Quantum Overlord can add your link to the post show notes or something.
Okay, I will do that, because it's real interesting. And in conclusion, I will just say as a joke, I will quote W.C. Fields. On the whole, I'd rather be in Philadelphia. But he's talking about his tombstone, on his tombstone.
I grew up in Philadelphia for a long time, so out in the suburbs of Philadelphia, so I know Philadelphia well.
Well, I had a lot of fun. Thank you, guys. It was great.
Yeah, me too. Quantum?
Okay, if that's it, I'll go offline then. And people can still join this hangout if they want to. The link's the same. I don't know how long people want to stay here. I'll be leaving, I guess, soon. Thanks everyone that joined. Hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye.